Hello, hello. I just wanted to come on here and talk a little bit more about two of the main reasons I see my clients struggling to lose weight, and that is all about cortisol and inflammation, or our food sensitivities. These are typically the missing pieces of the puzzle when it comes to why the scale is staying stuck. And now that summer is starting to wrap up, kids are going back to school, we're ready to get into our new routines, it's really, really beneficial to start looking at data as opposed to throwing shit against the wall and hoping that it sticks. Because let's be real, I've done every single diet under the sun, like tons and tons of diets. And until I started to actually test and figure out what is going on with my actual body, I was just guessing. And when we guess, it makes this whole process even longer because we're stuck in trial and error. Now, everyone thinks, okay, cortisol must be the reason why I can't lose all of this stubborn weight, especially lower belly, butt, thighs, where stress fat kind of hangs out because cortisol will change insulin regulation. So we think we have to start with cortisol. I'm going to tell you otherwise. We need to start with why is cortisol dysregulated in the first place? And there are a couple key reasons. First, one that I typically see with my clients is they're coming to me in a state of undernourishment. You cannot, as a grown woman, and I'm almost 40 years old, I was eating, 1,200 calories, 1,300 calories, and not losing weight. As a grown woman, you need to be eating in a calorie deficit minimum of like 1,700 calories. Anything under that, you're going to start to see some issues with your hormones, with your cortisol, because we need more food. So in a diet phase, you want to eat a minimum of 1,700 calories. Under that, we start to see some issues. If you're someone who's stuck at like 1,200, 1,300 calories and you're not losing, get the fuck out of there, okay? You've been dieting for too long. And typically what we need to do at that point is reverse diet, which can be a mind-bending experience if you've never taken the time to add in calories and get back to a metabolic restore, but that is typically what's needed. So you want to make sure that you're not in a state of undernourishment. We also want to make sure that your blood sugar is balanced. Protein, healthy fat, fiber, every single meal. Carbs are an additional +1 to the party. So if you're having meals with multiple carbs, if you're not eating enough protein, we're going to have some issues. You're also going to have some issues if fiber is not where it needs to be. 90% of my women clients coming into program do not get enough fiber. And if you don't have enough fiber, you're not detoxing excess estrogen, which will also cause weight gain and really crappy periods. Lots of symptoms associated with that. So we need to make sure your fiber, your protein, your healthy fat are on point. If you're on this blood sugar roller coaster, you're going to see energy crashes, fatigue, and cortisol dysregulation. So we need to start looking at your calories, your protein, your healthy fats, your nutrition from a hormone balancing perspective first, before you get into any testing. You can't do a cortisol test and eat 1,200 calories and expect to feel good. It's not going to happen. And you're also not going to see the results that you want. So tuning into nourishment is freaking huge. Tuning into your sleep, your water, your meditation, your mindfulness. Like, you've got to get the base of the pyramid super solid. I always work on that first with my clients. After that, go into gut health. If you have inflammation in the body, that is going to disrupt your gut, and it's also going to drive up inflammation. Those gut and inflammation are very much hand in hand. If you've never heard of leaky gut is basically the gut wall is one cell layer thick. And if we're eating inflammatory foods, yes, it can be processed foods, alcohol, sugars, gluten, dairy, all the things that everybody tells you to do, right? But if we're eating that, you will disrupt the gut wall. And the gut wall is one cell layer thick. And the cells of the gut should be nice and tight. And if we start to have inflammation to the gut from food sensitivities or some of these inflammatory foods or even infections, when the cells are nice and tight and they get inflamed, we actually start to have a gap in the cell wall. What does this mean? Well, we're going to have undigested food particles, toxins, chemicals, hormones from the liver that have been dumped into the gut. Instead of being eliminated as stool and being flushed down the toilet where they belong, well, they go through these little gaps in the cell wall because your gut, if it's inflamed, looks like a colander or a strainer. So then those toxins, those chemicals, those hormones that should have been eliminated as stool are now floating around in your bloodstream. So your detoxing is not great. That is also a stressor on the body. If you have inflammation causing foods entering your body and then floating around in your bloodstream as undigested food particles, that is also causing inflammation. That causes damage to the thyroid, autoimmune diseases, skin issues, all sorts of stuff. But that inflammation is also going to stress out your cortisol levels. If you're not detoxing effectively, that is going to stress out your cortisol levels. If you are having undigested, food causing inflammation in the body, we need to test that before we test cortisol. So always aim to look at the gut before we test cortisol. Because if you don't take care of those bottom layers of dysfunction, we're going to still have issues. And this also comes in, I have clients, I love me a good breathwork session. I'm a sound healer. I do plant medicine ceremonies with cacao and kava and all sorts of other things. But we can't just kumbaya our way out of cortisol dysregulation and not look at the physical components. So we need to start looking at first food, nourishment, sleep, water, all of that, then go into your food sensitivities and digestion to get you absorbing nutrients, optimizing your detox pathway, getting rid of inflammation, and then we test cortisol. And cortisol is like the icing on the cake, but we've built this beautiful way of really getting a lot of these key physical stressors off of the body. So really, what I love to do is, first of all, we need to get into a custom nutrition plan. I need to build out your workouts. I need to know exactly what you're doing food-wise. And then from there, we start to look at food sensitivities. We get that inflammation down. We start supporting the gut wall, minimizing inflammation. We start really tuning into your detox pathway, and that also helps with your cycle and with your hot flashes and with hormone issues because we're detoxing those hormones more effectively. And then from there, we go into seeing specifically with the 4-point salivary hormone test what is going on with your cortisol. And we can map that out and we know exactly where we need those supports. But we have all of that in place. And it's absolutely freaking epic to see that. So that's how I love to run things in my program with those two tests together. And right now, I'm doing both of those tests, which is $400 in lab testing for you for free the next 10 days. So when we're doing this program, we have the data. We understand what's specifically showing up for you. I don't want you doing what I do with my diet because it's not going to be relevant to you. And until we know what's causing inflammation, until we know what's causing dysregulation in the body, we're going to continue feeling stuck. So my goal is to customize everything from you from the ground up and get you solutions. So if this is something that you're interested in, would love to work with you, I'm only going to offer this lab discount to 5 people. So the first 5 people to snag it and get these 2 tests on me, I have not done 2 test kits for free in my program from this entire year. So now's the time to do that. Let's freaking rock and roll. Shoot me a DM if you want to get these 2 tests, and we will get you started and underway with your very own custom protocol.